Welcome to 101. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big. We're trying something new. We're doing everything by remote. And today we have one of our newsmakers, Dr. Donna Hanlin, the superintendent of the Board of Education for Wicomico County. Welcome, doctor.
Well, thank you very much. Good to be here.
So I get the feeling there's a lot going on in your world right now.
Quite a bit going on. A lot of moving targets, a lot of shifting going on from how we do things traditionally to kind of reinventing everything that we're doing as we work to do this remotely.
Well, the latest news, of course, is that schools will be closed at least until May 1st and probably longer. That hasn't been said. So how are you preparing for possibly reopening schools this year if you are?
Well, we're building plans for both possibilities. Many possibilities, really, but right now we're closed through the 15th of May. And so we're continuing with our plans with remote learning and all the other things that we're doing behind the scenes to keep our operation going. But we're also looking at what could we accomplish during those few weeks before the school year ends, if indeed we do go back on the 18th of May, which it would be. And what we're in now is really what we call our continuity of a learning plan, and what we're planning for eventually is our recovery plan. So we're doing both. We're working on both plans as we speak.
So you do have students who are doing work remotely?
Absolutely. We have the majority, more than the majority. We've been trying to get an idea of how many students are engaged through online resources and how many students are engaged through what we're calling our non-digital packets, where they're picking them up at schools. And then how many students have not engaged yet. And we're working on that every day, that last piece, because we want to be sure that we are engaging all of our students in the continuity of learning. And we're less than 10% now that we have not engaged with, and that number is going down every day as we're making phone calls, as we're approaching families, keeping safety in mind, trying to get every student engaged.
I've got a picture going into my paper this week of a bunch of teachers who are getting some laptops prepared to give out to students.
Yes. So the first thing that we had to be concerned with was making sure our teachers were ready. And so we learned that many teachers may have left their laptops at work for some reason or another and needed resources at home. So our technology staff worked really hard on reconfiguring laptops and distributed them again in a safe way, kind of through a drive-through process early on over at the central office. And so we believe that our teachers are all set. And now we're in the process of doing that same thing for students, starting with seniors, to make sure that they have the resources that they have. If they have an internet connection, but they just don't have a device, we want to be sure that they have the capability to connect digitally.
One of the things that this has exposed about the community is how many people are not online at home. And I noticed from my own web traffic through the newspaper that my viewers are about the same, but the time spent is a lot more. So the people that are online are very devoted. They'll read all the stories. They spend a lot more time, but they're not accessing it as much from their phones because they're so used to doing the internet from work.
Right. Yeah. So one of the very first things we did was sent a survey out to our families, trying to get an idea of what their capacity was at home, in their homes. And as you can imagine, we got about 60% back of those responses initially, and of those 60%, probably almost 90% had access online, but that's of the 60% who responded. So as I said, we're continuing to figure out who those students are. And what we've learned is that through connections, through some of our learning platforms, one is Khan Academy, and another is Google Classroom, that we have probably close to 60% of our students who are engaged online. Now, that could be that they are going to remote hotspots in our community. We have a very powerful one in the auditorium at James and Bennett that reaches throughout that whole parking lot. Oak Ridge Baptist Church was great at it and installed a hotspot in their parking lot. And then all of our other sites have some remote access from being just around the school. So we have to assume that some of that remote connection or ability to connect remotely is based upon going to those hotspots.
Being in education for 40 years, did anyone ever talk about this possibly happening?
No, not that I remember. Not that anyone really took seriously to this extent. You know, we've talked over the years about having laptops for students, and unfortunately that hasn't been one of my top priorities, because I felt that it was really important to have the professional development and the curriculum along with it. We didn't want to just put a laptop in the hands of students, and that is just becoming more and more important, and has increased my awareness of that need. So if nothing else, we've learned a great deal from what we've been going through. And I think, as I've said to many, that when we finally do reach the other side of this, that we will be stronger.
And you talk about professional development, and we worry about whether the students are able to embrace all this. How are the teachers doing through this?
So the first week, first couple of weeks we were off, teachers weren't working. And we had 12-month employees, curriculum supervisors working on what are the most essential skills that students need in order to move forward, not knowing how long this closure would last. And the next week, we closed out third marking period while teachers were involved in professional development. And we have had some great online professional development for teachers to learn how to use Google Classroom. Obviously, some of them are much more comfortable with teaching online, and I think others have become more comfortable as it has become a reality. But I'm sure there are still some who are struggling with it. And we have staff, technology staff, and others at the central office who, again, remotely are providing support to not only our teachers, but to our students and parents who are struggling.
There must be an emotional toll too, because spring sports season, so many ambitions and hopes for that, and graduations for this year. How are people reacting to that?
Haven't heard a lot yet, but in anticipation of the big question about graduation, I think people probably know that the likelihood of coming together at the Youth and Civic Center in such a large forum on the dates that we had originally scheduled, the likelihood of that is not great. But I'm in fact, just this week, I'll be sending out a letter to seniors to let them know we're thinking about them, that we know we share in their disappointment for such a milestone in their lives that they can't celebrate in the traditional ways. But we have a small group working with stakeholders from each one of our high schools to work on plans for how we might do that remotely and in unique ways to celebrate our seniors.
Well, I know from my readers, it's one of the favorite things that we do every year is running those graduation pictures. And I know that people I know are really going to miss seeing those, and I can only imagine what it's like for the parents.
Yes, well, we're working on it. I don't know, what it'll look like, whether it'll be a virtual graduation in, later in the summer. There's all kinds of possibilities that we're considering. And I believe that Don Brady, who's our director of secondary, is organizing this committee, and I believe that he has students working with him on that. And so sometimes they are the most creative among us as we try to figure out how to make it meaningful for them.
The other thing I look forward to every year is the Teacher of the Year. Will you be able to have that, or how will that work?
Well, we've just received word from the Maryland State Department of Education that they want to move forward with the Maryland Teacher of the Year process, which means that we will be probably within the next couple of weeks making some announcements and trying to again do this with the greatest amount of fanfare that we can without having our Teacher of the Year banquet, because we'll need to make that announcement so our Teacher of the Year can complete the submission of the Maryland Teacher of the Year applications. So we're looking forward to that. We're talking about doing it perhaps in conjunction with Teacher Appreciation Week, which is the first week in May. So that should be coming up soon, where we'll be recognizing all of our Teachers of the Year, our finalists. And our newest, last year, if you'll recall, we started recognizing a rising star. And that we will continue with that as well. One of our beginning teachers that shows great promise.
Someone presented a horrible scenario to me, which I had not thought of, and that would be the idea of reopening schools in the fall, but practicing social distancing while schools are open. Have you guys thought about that?
Well, that would be very challenging. I know I've seen some of that. I think that would be next to impossible when you think about how I mean, of course, I would have thought this was next to impossible.
Right.
So, and we figured out a way to do it. But when you think about just the process of students at lunch, the number of students in some of our classrooms that, are large class sizes at some of our schools, because our enrollment continues to grow, it would be really, really hard to social distance. So certainly we would put any safety precautions in place that we can, but to social distance would be challenging.
What's it going to be like for the graduating seniors? They're all going to have this big asterisk next to their transcript, I guess, and they're all going to kind of be in the same boat. What's the discussion like on that?
Well, we're having discussions with higher ed while they're going through this same thing, and they recognize that, senior transcripts are going to look different. And so I don't know specifics. It would probably vary from institution to institution, but they are going to be flexible as well. And in terms of what a high school senior's transcript looks like. So yeah, that we're in discussion with institutes of higher ed. So.
And I read a very disturbing story recently about the learning gap that happened down in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina, where the kids were out for an entire fall semester. And really, a lot of the students were never able to catch up again.
Well, we certainly don't want that to be the case. We will be very committed to making sure that our students recover from this. That's why I refer to it as a recovery plan. And again, I don't know what that looks like yet. We're thinking about what it could look like if we come back as early as the spring, late spring in May. What an extended summer school might look like. Understanding that there are many families who choose to use summer as a time to relax and enjoy the beach. Hopefully those things will still be the possibility or a possibility, but or is it when we return in the fall, what kinds of interventions are we providing both in class and after school? So lots and lots of planning is going into that, and has not been finalized, but we recognize that this is not just a summer slide, but could very well be a much more devastating slide for some of our students.
What do you encourage families to do, parents? How can they keep track of their kids and make sure they stay engaged?
Yeah, well, that's the key word. Staying engaged is so critically important. We have many resources on our website, and I would encourage parents, if you haven't already gone to our website, to take a look at what we have available there. And it's not only resources that have to do with the specific learning packets that are out there, but also other resources to do just what you're describing, to keep students engaged, resources that address students' social and emotional concerns right now, the fear that many more than likely have as a result of the virus and being away from loved ones and classmates and teachers. And so lots and lots of resources there that I think are really important. And just to read to your children, continue to keep them engaged in any way possible. There's a lot of creative ways out there, and we've included some of those on our website.
For years I've heard that so many kids rely on their primary meals from the school system. and you hear it, but you don't really realize what that means. But now we're seeing it, where the schools are still feeding kids, and had some great photos in our paper of some teachers preparing meals at the Camden Garden. But that goes on. The meal pickup stuff is continued.
Yes, it does. And we're really, really proud of our food service workers and the volunteers in the community. We have, I can't remember now whether it's 18 or 19 sites throughout the community. And on any given day, it's 1,500 plus students who are receiving meal bundles. We're doing it 3 times a week now to try to limit as best we can human interaction, but we're creating larger meal bundles for students that come to the sites to pick them up. And it hasn't diminished at all, as you've indicated. It's only grown, and we will continue to provide that service to support our families.
One of the things you've always done is you've always sort of been an apostle of hope for the school system. You're just very inspiring in terms of your attitude. Is it easy to keep an upbeat attitude through this? How do you navigate through this personally?
Well, it's very different to be working from home, first of all. Instead of it, I kind of went kicking and screaming, but finally forced myself and the 3 assistant superintendents to realize we can do what we're doing from home. We do go out and check on some of the sites, the meals sites and the packet distribution when they occur at the schools. But for the most part, we're doing our work at home. And I think the way that the biggest thing for me right now is communication. I'm sending weekly messages to families. I don't want to inundate them. I'd love to be sending them more often, but weekly messages, phone messages to parents. And when parents communicate with me, I am, responsive and attempt to listen to what their needs are. It's been incredible, the number of positive notes that I have received, and I pass them on to staff because we're all doing this differently. It's so different than anything any of us have experienced before, and we just want to make sure that we are supporting all of our students. That issue of equity is so critically important, especially in Wicomico County, where we have so many students who are, we have a high mobility rate, students moving from school to school. We have a high poverty rate. We have homelessness. And so I think that keeps me going, just thinking about how can we continue to find every possible unique strategy to try to engage all of our students. Just this week, our team from our student services team are putting door hangers on students' homes to tell them we miss them and that we want them to engage. And so it does, someone asked me if it was overwhelming. It's not overwhelming, it's intense. It's 24/7. It definitely, I do wake up at night thinking about this little detail and that little detail, but I have an amazing staff. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that all of them have done together and the support that we've received from parents and the community.
We always make sure to have you on twice a year in April to talk about the school budget. And that's always exciting because there's usually some drama with that. And then we have you on in August to talk about the opening of the school year.
Yes.
But this year you all seemed very respectful and quiet and presented kind of a bare bones, no drama, no great expectations budget. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Yes, we did present a maintenance of effort budget, which now I'm even more thankful that we did that because everyone is struggling financially. We recognize that. But that was important to me this year because and while I want to make sure that Wicomico County Public Schools has everything that we need to be able to run our operation, to be able to achieve the goals of Imagine 2022. I also, knowing that Kerwin, or the blueprint for Maryland's future, is going to put constraints on the state and the local government, I recognize that, and I want to be a good community partner, and I want to So it's not just about the county government, but it's about all of the other entities, the library, the community college, all of those entities that need resources as well. And so I tried to, as I always do, have the big picture in mind. And we determined what we would be able to accomplish to move forward with Imagine 2022, and that was with a maintenance of effort budget.
Your big capital project right now is Beaver Run, and I just had a little item in the history column. I think it was from 1985, where they were adding the gymnasium on there.
Oh, wow.
And they were all excited to finally have a gym and a cafeteria and another classroom. But now that is certainly antiquated, and you're going a whole new direction.
We are. We're excited about it. We were, of course, that groundbreaking ceremony was one of the first things that got canceled. It was in late March, and so we didn't get to have that, but it didn't stop us from breaking ground and beginning construction there. And I'm hearing, though I haven't been by lately, I am hearing that it's very exciting what we're seeing there at the Beaver Run project. So to my knowledge, we are on time with what we're doing there according to what our plans are at Beaver Run. And I know that community is so excited about seeing that progress begin.
And the one that is kind of painful with a little drama is the Mardela situation. Do you want to get into that just a little bit?
Well, we're still very hopeful that we will continue to move forward with the Mardela project. Of course, the current, budget constraints that everyone will suffer, I'm sure will have an impact on that. But it's really, really important, and we've tried to get the facts out there with the county government and with the parent community and Mardela to make them aware of just what we need local support in order to receive state planning approval. And so that is coming up, I believe, in early May, where we will receive word on whether we've gotten planning approval. I know Mr. Culver did comment in a letter to the head of the IAC, Bob Gorel, that he was in support of the project, and forgive me, I'm not going to be able to quote him, but in support of the project in some fashion. I've forgotten what his words are, and so we're still very hopeful. We're hoping that the right thing will happen and that we'll be able to move forward.
Well, as one of the community leaders that's going to help get us through this, I just want to salute you. I can only imagine your job was hard enough, and now with all this going on to keep our kids educated, it's got to be a daunting task.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Anything I forgot to ask? Anything you want to get out there?
Oh, I can't think of anything right now. Just a lot of things happening behind the scenes to continue the work that we do that people don't even think about. We're preparing for next year with student scheduling, human resources. We're hiring teachers virtually. It's just the amount of things that are going on behind the scenes. As I said before, I can't thank the staff enough. Our print shop, we have 3 employees in our print shop. 2 are working during the day, 1 is working at night, and they are printing, I think they're up to about 800,000 copies of materials.
Wow.
So yeah, it's an ongoing effort, but we are committed to being able to support our students to get through this.
She's Dr. Donna Hanlin. She's our superintendent of schools, keeping us going through this tough time. And we're so thrilled she had time to invite us into her home today to get a taste. We saw her dog in the background earlier.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, but
Chester.
But Chester wandered off. So, but thank you so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
I'm Gregg
Stay
Bassett.
safe.
Thank you. I'm Gregg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on PAC 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.